Hi, my name is Dominic Palazzolo, and many of you know me as the owner and founder of MakeYourOwnMolds.com, where I've been teaching food service professionals how to make molds for food for over 15 years. With this video today, I'm introducing a new company that I started. It's called Marvelous Molds. And after this demonstration, I'm hoping that you find that we deserve that name, because I'm actually manufacturing silicone molds for the food service industry. And today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce a very interesting line of molds that I'm coming out with. It's called the Sculpted Scroll line. Very quickly, I'd just like to tell you that in my travels, when I go to cake competitions and I see the type of scroll work that's done on cakes, a lot of times it's just scroll work that has been cut out with cutters on rolled out fondant or gum paste. And quite frankly, I mean, the pattern is really nice, but it looks to me like it was cut out of construction paper, because there's no three-dimensionality to it. There's no detail. It just looks like almost like a silhouette, almost. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a line of molds that any cake decorator or clay artist, or any artist really who wants to embellish anything with scroll work, could use in order to quickly produce beautiful scrolls that could be applied to their favorite artwork. So we're going to be using fondant and gum paste and different materials like that that's associated with the sugar craft industry. But anyway, this is the mold, and this is one of 16 different molds that we're going to offer in this line. It's called the Right Scroll Ensemble. And so you see a little scroll there, and it also has kind of a flourish end to it. And before I get into any details about how this mold is made and constructed, I really just want to kind of show you how this works. So what I'm going to do is, whenever you get a brand new mold, it's always a good idea to put some cornstarch in it. Now, these molds are very, very strong, and so if you want to, you can abuse them. You're certainly not going to hurt them by handling them in any way like I'm doing right now. But one of the things you want to do is when you pounce with the cornstarch, don't allow it to kind of accumulate in a very thick coating. If it does, you want to knock it out so you just have like a 1 molecule thick coating on the inside of the mold. Now, I'm going to take some pre-sheeted fondant. I'd like to tell you that I stiffened the fondant by working some powdered sugar into it. A lot of times, right out of the tub, the fondant can be a little too loose and a little too sticky for any mold. And so I stiffened it by adding some powdered sugar. Now, one of the nice things about my molds is that on the back side, you have a raised kind of little ridge that you can press down into the fondant. And what it'll do is it'll make a really nice impression. Now, that impression is a guide that you can use in order to cut that fondant that you need for this mold out. And that's what we did right now. Now, what I like to do is I like to just put a little cornstarch on the fondant itself, and then I'm going to put it down on this mold. Okay? Now, I'm just going to press the fondant inside. Okay? And if the fondant is sticking to your skin, just use a little cornstarch. Now notice that I'm using the kind of like the side of my hand, this pad here, in order to push the fondant down really hard, because these molds are not like other molds you've experienced. Every one of the scrolls that comes out of this mold was individually hand carved by myself and the staff here at Marvelous Molds. So these are unique designs. We had complete control over their shape and how they look. And we made the detail really nice and deep so that you're going to be able to see this work on a cake or on a piece of artwork from across the room. Anyway, you might notice that a ridge is starting to form around here. This is what we call a trimming blade. It's built right into the mold, and I have applied to the US Patent Office for an actual patent. So this is a patent pending design that I'm actually previewing here. What we do is we take a pin, and we're just going to take very quick rolls or passes right over the top of this mold. Okay? Now, I have been working with people and having them try out these molds. And the first thing that I see them do is I see them pressing really, really hard down on this mold because they think they've got to do that in order to make the cut. And what I really want to show you is that it's just very quick, light strokes, and it will cut the fondant perfectly around the opening of the cavity to the mold. So you're going to get a result like that. Now, I don't think you're going to believe this, but I was able to work into the design of the mold the ability for you to create windows or openings in the actual scroll design. No longer do we have to have solid scrolls, but we can actually have airspace or openings in the design, which gives you a tremendous amount of ability to play with color. And when you put it on the cake can be one color, the scroll can be another. And through the windows, you can see the color difference, which can be very, very striking. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make sure that I'm pressing down. I'm pressing the fondant into the details very well. And then you'll notice that the trimming blade actually sticks out above the top of the mold. There's a secondary purpose to the trimming blade. Not only does it cut the fondant, but you can take your finger and press on the side of the blade and press the blade into the cavity of the mold. Now, I think you can see what it's doing. It's actually rolling the edge. And I know a lot of you have used molds before, and when you take an item out of the mold and it's made with gum paste or fondant or marzipan, what you have to do is you have to take a little X-Acto knife and you have to trim off all these little flashings and all these little specks, and it takes a lot of time. Well, actually using the blade in this manner, you are eliminating the need to do that. Now, before I unmold this, I'm also going to work the blades that cut the windows or the openings in the scroll. And I'm going to push those so that I'm going to push the blade outward instead of inward. So we're going to actually push it out like that. And that finishes the inner line or edge to the scroll opening. Okay, now another really cool thing or part or aspect about this mold is that you'll notice that there are these lips, and they exceed on the outside and perimeter of the entire mold. And what I like to do is I like to take my left hand, I'm right-handed, and I'll take my fingers and I'll put it right under the base of the mold. See how I've done that? And then I'm going to grab the lip and I'm going to pull out and down. Okay? Let's show you that again. I'm going to pull out and down while I'm keeping my fingers stationary and just pressing up. Now, maybe you have read instructions associated with other types of silicone molds where you're supposed to put this in the freezer for 10 minutes and actually make it firm up before you can take it out of a mold. But we're busy. We need to get things done, and I just don't want to design a mold where you have to do that and take that step. It really slows things down. You should be able to unmold the item right out of the mold and really get going as far as applying the decorations to whatever you're making. So what I can do is I can just come around, and you can see that this piece is practically just begging to fall right out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it over, and I'm going to unmold it. And there is an example of one of our scrolls made out of white fondant. I'm going to unmold it again, only this time in purple, to give you an idea. The color on this color on the camera shows up really nicely. And now you can see the details on the scroll. Can you imagine how beautiful that would be on your cake? Okay, so now that I showed you how this mold works, what I want to do is I want to get into some particulars and specifics about how to use this new type of mold. Since no one's ever seen a mold like this, I really want to talk about certain things that you need to know. For instance, one of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to fill the mold too high. When you look at the mold, what you will think is that, or most people make this assumption, they will think that the top of the mold is actually here at the top of the blade. But to think rightly about this mold, you have to understand that the blade is sitting on top of the mold itself. So if you look at the top of the lip right here, that really is an indication of when the mold is filled. If you were to take some fondant and you were to fill this mold all the way to the top of the cutting blade like this, okay? What's going to happen when you unmold is that you're going to get an object that is too thick, thicker than the object that I designed for you, okay? So what you want to do is you want to find and sheet your fondant so that you can put it into the mold, and after putting it down into the mold, it actually comes up to the base of the blade, or even with the top of the lip on the outside. That is really, really important. Now, just to make sure that you get a really good grasp of that, I've got this diagram that I want to use. So let's imagine that I took this mold and I was to cut it in half, okay? And we were going to look straight down that cut. We would have something that looks like this, okay? Now this is the lip on the outside of the mold. This is the blade. And this is the cavity where the design is. And then here's the lip or the blade on the other side and the lip. Okay? Now, if you were going to take some fondant and put it into this mold, and you were going to fill it to the very top of the lip, of the blade, again, you'd be making a mistake. The mold's going to work fine, but you're going to be getting something that is too thick, in our opinion, and it wasn't designed to be that thick. Okay? Instead, what you want to do is you want to fill with fondant or gum paste up to the base of the blade, level with the top of the lip. Now, when you unmold, you're going to get something that is much closer to what I intended you to get, and it'll have all the beauty and all of the characteristics that was designed into the piece. Now, I want to share with you another reality or truth when it comes to a mold. You know, if you have a mold and it is of a certain depth, there isn't a law in the universe that says, hey, I've got to fill that mold all the way to the top. You may have an application where the thickness of the scroll that you want it to come out of the mold, you want it to be thinner. There's no problem, and it's not wrong, to underfill the mold in order to get a thinner result, okay? The only thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have enough fondant or whatever you're putting into the mold so that it actually can accommodate the details and you have a little extra above that. That is it, okay? Okay, so I've run you through the basics of how to use the mold, but I wanted to show you something else that I kind of discovered after I invented this product, and it's pretty cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pounce my mold. By the way, this is just a little girl's tights with a couple cups of cornstarch put in the toe and tied in a knot, and it's a really nice little tool. When I created this mold, I wanted to try to make a mold that had application in the sugarcraft industry, but also in the commercial baking industries where there's a lot greater volume, and perhaps you're making buttercream cakes, and with all with the popularity of the cake shows, fondant cakes and better designs are becoming much more popular, and they're being requested especially for wedding cakes. And so there might be a lot of operations out there where you want to try to, you know, cross that bridge into some upscale designs that you could add to your cake collection, but then you're always worried about labor and how much is that going to cost and everything like that. Well, I believe that these molds can be used in a way where you can still get the look, but you're not spending tons of time like hand making, you know, pastelage flowers or something like that. So what I wanted to show you was another way of using this mold. Believe it or not, the blade acts almost like a biscuit cutter if you use it in the reverse method. So we have imagine having some sheeted fondant, and we're going to take this mold and we're going to place it down onto the fondant. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to press, okay, we're going to press straight down, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to use a circular motion while we're pressing down, okay? Now what happens is that blade comes through and it trims, and so there, you've got it. Think how fast you can actually use this like a biscuit cutter on sheeted fondant, where you have one person actually doing the cutting, and then it comes to another person who will press and quickly unmold. And imagine that you had a cake ready to receive these decorations. Well, very, very quickly, you're creating these beautiful scrolls, and you can put them right on the cake with using one or two people. And so that's just another application or a way of being able to use this mold. Now, I wanted to show you this nice little piece. This is called a Flourish Essential. And I know that to you, compared to the first piece that I cut, maybe this isn't the most impressive piece, okay? But right now what we're doing is we're going to be showing you pictures as I'm talking of what this single design can do just by itself. Now there is a matching. This one right here is a left essential flourish, and there is a right essential flourish that goes with this if you want to. But let's just say that you've got a tight budget and you just wanted to buy this one mold, okay? We're showing you designs right now where you can just make these and put them together in order to create an uncountable array of different arrangements that you can put on a cake. And at this point in time, what I wanted to tell you was all the different sculpted scroll designs were created so that they can be used interchangeably and with each other. So every scroll design can be used with another scroll design in order to create an uncountable or infinite number of arrangements that you can put on a cake. It comes down to your own imagination. So earlier we had touched on this collection. It's very simple, but it creates many, many different designs. It is using the left and right essential flourish, and when we put that together, it makes a beautiful heart. And so, for instance, this collection is called Venus. Now, if we take and add to that collection, if we take the right and left scroll ensemble, what happens is that we add to the sophistication of the arrangements that are possible. So, notice what happens now when we add the two ensembles to the essentials, the essential flourishes. Now, this is an example of Aphrodite. You would go to our website and actually see the Aphrodite collection, and then you can see all the different ways that you can use these 4 different molds to create borders and all kinds of really interesting embellishments. We have Mary Beth's cake here, which again I think is just beautiful. Would you like to take us on a tour?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's start from this top. From the top, I used, I think, 6 different molds from the scroll series. The really cool thing about the scroll series is a lot of the pieces have lefts and rights, which are mirror images. So right here we have the left and the right. I believe this is a prime flourish. Is that what that one is?
It is.
And then I took the little essential flourishes, lefts and rights, and then the left and right.
Those are prime scrolls.
Prime swirls. I think those
Scrolls.
are prime swirls.
Yes. Okay.
And just created a nice centerpiece for this particular tier.
Now, were you trying to get a tiara effect here?
No, but I really like the way that it came up above the level of the cake, just to add a little bit more drama to the tier.
But you know what? If that was done, basically, on a table, put over like a cake dummy of this size, and then it hardened with that turn in it, with that diameter. I mean, you could put it together and you would actually have a really nice tiara.
Yeah, you could stick that on the top of your cake for
Yeah.
princess cakes, quinceañeras.
Pour it in
cakes.
chocolate, pour it in isomalt,
Yeah.
and make some ornamentation. Anyway, I interrupted.
Okay.
I do that a lot.
All right, so I don't know if you can see down here between the black tier and the green tier, there's actually an isomalt. I used the scroll border, and I poured isomalt into the mold. The mold is nice, and the lip edges give it taller, make it a deeper cavity. So you can pour chocolate and isomalt and other materials into the mold, and I created a tier separator.
So you made it thicker so that it was going to be stronger and you can handle it, because
Yeah.
isomalt, it's very delicate.
So the really cool thing about the scroll collection comes with 2 border molds. Can you get the border mold out that I used? That these 2 were designed so that their length are 2 pi.
That's true.
So
2 pi, that's 3.14 times 2, that's 6.28 inches.
yeah, so what does pi have to do with round cakes?
It has, it's part of circumference, so any even diametered cake, like a 6, an 8, a 10, a 12, and on, we designed it based on pi so that as you're putting these borders on in sections, they will connect perfectly when you come around and meet up with the original piece that you put on.
Yeah, so what I did was I poured isomalt into the mold, and then as it was cooling, I bent it around a dummy, a 8-inch cake dummy, and I made 4 of them, because 4 fit perfectly around an 8-inch circumference, and created a tier separator out of isomalt. which ended up really, really cool.
So you welded them together.
Yeah, I used a kitchen torch, heated up the edge. My poor little children thought I was going to burn down the house, but I knew everything was safe. So I heated up the edge and then pushed the two isomalt pieces together after they had cooled and they'd formed their curve. Heated up the edge, pushed them together, and then I created a 8-inch round tier separator using this scroll border.
Now, how old is this cake?
This cake is probably about 3 weeks old now.
So the isomalt tier separator that you see has reacted to the changing environments and humidities, and so it was crystal clear, wasn't it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The whole weekend it was crystal
I
clear.
think a lot of people would be surprised that, well, gee, I can pour isomalt into this mold, but you didn't get any feeling like you were, maxing out on the heat resistance of this mold.
No.
I mean, in actuality, I mean, the mold can resist temperatures up to over 400 degrees.
Yeah, and the isomalt, when I was pouring, it was only about 300. And you figure when you bake a cake, that's 350.
Right.
So
now, all these scroll molds, how do you like the shine on the inside? See the shine? I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of times you buy molds and they're dull on the inside. If you pour isomalt or chocolate and you want it to be shiny coming out of the mold, if it's not shiny on the inside, you're not going to get a gloss or a
Okay.
sheen. So did your isomalt come out shiny?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
yeah,
good.
it was pretty glistening and crystal clear.
So let's talk about the
So the bottom,
bottom.
tier has the was it swirl centerpiece? Is that's what it's called?
yes.
The swirl centerpiece
Yes.
that we just
Mm-hmm.
showed how to use. So what I did was I made several of these and just connected them end to end all the way around my bottom tier, and thought it made a really pretty design just using this one mold. And then in the back, would you like to turn it around, Don?
I would.
Okay.
Oops.
In the back, I showed how the mold, you can take pieces of the mold and make even more designs. So this is the fondant piece that we just unmolded a little bit ago. And what I did was you could take a needle tool or an X-Acto knife, and I just cut away a little bit and created a little centerpiece for the back of my mold, and it goes right with the design of the swirl centerpiece.
Wow, so you made another scroll design
Yeah.
out of a scroll design. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the combinations are so unlimited.
You know what?
Go forever.
I think that somebody will be confused, like, well, why didn't these fit seamlessly around? This is an even-sized cake, right?
Mm-hmm.
But see, this is a centerpiece, and this is a scroll mold. So,
It's the border mold on the top.
what did I say?
Scroll mold. It is a scroll mold.
It is.
It's a border.
It's a border mold, and so the border molds are the ones that go around. But, like Mary Beth showed, you can use any of these scrolls and tie in if you have a little bit of excess space. I think that was very
Yeah.
attractive.
So you
Very
can make
cool.
your own unique design using molds.
Now, what happened during the competition? You entered as what?
I entered as advanced
Yes.
tiered cake.
And they recategorized you, didn't they?
They recategorized me as professional. So I got bumped up to the professional division.
Very good.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was very, very pleased and excited that my cake was considered in the professional the highest for this particular cake show.
Should we reveal what's coming next in the
I don't
future?
know. Should we tell them what to look for in the future? Maybe we should turn it around.
Yeah.
Show them the front. Well, no. Do you all want a sneak peek of what's coming up next?
Very soon.
Well, first we should show them what's already out there.
Well, this is getting long.
Buttons.
Oh, well, yeah,
The
that's
filigree button mold was used for
yes.
these.
Very good.
Yeah.
I love the fabric look that you created. What is this effect called?
It's the Tufted Billow Weave by Susan Trianos.
Very
I bought her
cool.
DVD.
Tufted billow weave.
Yeah.
And the buttons just accent that really well.
Mm-hmm.
How did you like this border here?
The border is really pretty. It's
How did you create those pleats?
the pleats are the border, or the mold. They're in the mold, and they're really cool because they look like you've taken the fondant fabric and folded it and folded it and folded it, but in reality, the mold did that for me. And it even has a little ribbon center going all the way through.
So that's what's coming next, folks. We are working on a whole collection of cake border molds, and we're hoping that you find them all as attractive as this one, which we're very, very pleased with. It looks like fabric, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes. Well, Mary Beth, thank you for making an appearance
You're
on
welcome.
my videos, and I hope that this has been helpful, seeing these molds actually used. And I think that's about it for this segment.
All right, have a great day. Happy caking.